Welcome back. Today on our journey through the Bible, we will learn about Jesus' suffering before his death.
Yes, I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong. They are weak, but he is strong. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so.
The death. The theme verse for this aspect of the Messiah's life comes from Isaiah 53, verse 7. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is dumb, so he openeth not his mouth. Gethsemane. Following their Passover meal, Jesus and the 11 disciples went to the Mount of Olives and stopped in the Garden of Gethsemane, a place he and the apostles often retreated. Jesus advised the men to pray that they would not be tempted. Then Jesus took Peter, James, and John aside, and when they were away from the other 8, Jesus' disposition began to be distressed. He asked Peter, James, and John to watch and pray, while he went a short way from them to pray on his own. When Jesus was on his own, he fell on his face and prayed in great grief, saying, Abba, Father, all things are possible unto thee. Take away this cup from me. Nevertheless, not what I will, but what thou wilt. Then he returned to Peter, James, and John, and found them sleeping. Jesus said to Peter, What? Could ye not watch with me 1 hour? He told them again to watch and pray, so that they would not be tempted. Then Jesus went away again to pray, saying, O my Father, if this cup may not pass away from me, except I drink it, thy will be done. Again, Jesus returned to the disciples and found them sleeping. Because they were tired, he let them sleep. Then Jesus went away again the 3rd time and prayed, saying, Father, if thou be willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. As the agony of the burden on him increased, Jesus sweat great drops of blood, and he prayed more intensely. An angel from heaven appeared to strengthen him. After Jesus prayed, he returned to the disciples and roused all of them. The time had come for his betrayal. While he spoke, Judas and the army provided by the chief priests, scribes, and elders approached them, carrying swords and staves. Judas greeted Jesus with a kiss, saying, Master, Master, and in so doing identified Jesus to the soldiers. Jesus then asked the men, Whom seek ye? The soldiers answered, Jesus of Nazareth. To this Jesus responded, I am he. At this response, the soldiers fell backwards to the ground. When the soldiers recovered, they took a hold of Jesus to arrest him. He then asked them why they chose to come with swords and staves at night to take him, as if he were a thief. when he was with them daily teaching in the temple. Peter, in an attempt to defend Jesus, drew his sword, injuring the high priest's servant. Jesus healed the man and told the disciples not to fight, because the prophecy must be fulfilled. At this, the disciples all ran away, leaving Jesus to be arrested. Before the cock crowed twice. The soldiers led Jesus to the high priest's palace to be examined by Annas, the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest. Peter and another disciple followed at a distance. When they arrived at the high priest's palace, the other disciple was allowed into the judgment hall because the high priest knew him. This disciple spoke to the girl at the door so that Peter would be let in. She let Peter in and, studying his face, recognized him as one of Jesus' disciples. Then she asked him, "Art not thou one of this man's disciples?" To which Peter answered flatly, "I am not." It was cold that night, so some of the priest's officers and servants made a fire in the courtyard, and Peter joined them and stood by it to keep warm and watch Jesus' trial. A short time later, a young girl saw him and said, "This fellow was also with Jesus of Nazareth." Again, Peter denied knowing Jesus, this time swearing, "I do not know the man." About an hour later, the gathered spectators, all seeing Peter, confirmed with a certainty that he was one of Jesus' disciples, because his way of speaking gave him away. Peter vehemently denied knowing Jesus, with cursing and swearing, saying, "I know not the man." Immediately, the rooster crowed, and Jesus looked directly at Peter. Peter then remembered Jesus' words from earlier that night. "Before the cock crow twice, thou shalt deny me thrice." Peter then went out of the palace gates and cried bitterly, because he had denied his Lord. Trial, Jews. When they brought Jesus to the high priest's palace, he was initially questioned by Annas, who asked him about his disciples and his doctrine. Jesus simply stated that all his ministry was done in the open, in the synagogues and temple. He said nothing he taught was done in secret. Then Jesus said, "Why askest thou me? Ask them which heard me, what I have said unto them. Behold, they know what I said." At this, one of the officers hit Jesus, saying, "How dare he answer the high priest in this manner?" Then Jesus said to the officer, "If I have spoken evil, bear witness of the evil. But if well, why smitest thou me?" Following this examination, Annas sent Jesus to Caiaphas, the high priest. On the way to the high priest, the men that transported Jesus blindfolded him, hit him on his face, and mocked him, telling him to prophesy who had hit him. Jesus said not a word to them. Now, when Jesus stood before the council of Caiaphas and the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders, all manner of witnesses were brought to testify lies against Jesus, but none of their stories coordinated. Then 2 witnesses came and testified that Jesus said he would destroy the temple made with hands and build it up again in 3 days without hands. Jesus did not respond to any of the accusations made by the false witnesses. Then the high priest in anger stood up and said to Jesus, "I adjure thee by the living God that thou tell us whether thou be the Christ, the Son of God." To this Jesus responded, "Thou hast said. Nevertheless I say unto you, hereafter shall ye see the Son of Man sitting on the right hand of power, and coming in the clouds of heaven." At this statement, the high priest tore his clothes and said he had not need of any more witnesses. He declared Jesus guilty of blasphemy. The council agreed, and all declared that he was worthy of death. They all spit in his face and hit him and mistreated him. Now it's time for our activity. First question: how many times did Jesus pray that the cup would pass from him? That's right, he prayed 3 times. Next question: who denied knowing Jesus and what happened to him? That's right, Simon Peter did, and he went away and wept bitterly. Last question: who was the high priest presiding over Jesus' trial? Yes, Caiaphas was the high priest. Now, write or say the memory and theme verses from memory.
Yes, Jesus loves
Next time,
me.
we'll read about Jesus'
Yes,
Roman
Jesus
trial.
loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me, for the Bible tells me so.